And we are live in three, two, one. Let's go. Ryan, welcome. It's a little different of a stream, a lot less pressure as the debate. Welcome back, my man. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for having me. Happy to be back.
Good to have you, man. But I want to start off. We kind of talked about this pre-stream anyway, but during a debate, I talk a lot during my normal videos. Don't get the opportunity a lot of times to shut my mouth, and that was definitely helpful. But there was a lot that I think needs to be brought up from that debate. But I do want to start off a little bit of a different tangent, and thank you. Um, I think so. We talk about immersive experiences quite a bit. Everyone wants bigger and better things. They want Half-Life Alyx. They want these stories. They want to feel like they're part of it. They need a lot to be going on, right? But aren't sports almost the greatest movies written out of real life? I mean, there's movies that are perennial all-stars with sports because they are timeless, they hit you in the feels, even the real life stuff you can't make up. When Tiger Woods came back on his redemption tour, ended up winning, and hugged his child on the green, and then side by side they show the photo of him hugging his father the last time he won, rest in peace. You cannot make that stuff up. If you have any bit of a human soul, you will tear up. It is a beautiful story, and that writes itself. So I think you do not get enough credit. Racket, 11, table tennis, all these sport-focused games, I do not think get enough credit. They're very important, and I think they can lead to more immersive experiences than some story games can do. So I think that is understated, and you deserve some praise for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I've been a golf fan my entire life since I started playing when I was 11, which happened to be 1996. And Tiger Woods won the Masters for the first time in 1997. So Tiger Woods has been my idol since I was a kid. And watching him win the Masters in 2019 was like just the coolest feeling ever to see him come back and pull that off, and then, like you said, hug his kid and see the shot of him hugging his dad, and just the full circle there. I mean, like you said, it's like this real time intensity that is happening somewhere in the world at that moment. And yeah, sports are amazing. Sports are great. It's a reason they've been such a big part of human history for such a long time. So I appreciate you saying that. And yeah, I do think sports games kind of appeal to some and not so much to others. But on the flip side, where I think we get a lot of benefit versus something like even a Half-Life Alyx is in replayability, right? I think
Yep.
people who
Yep.
play sports games and experience sports realize that every single time you play, it's going to be different. And that's why, we have a lot of players that play every single week, or in some cases every single day, including my dad, who's 65 and no longer plays golf in the real form, but plays VR every day, and almost every day tells me about his round. So
I've got to
it's
ask too, like, because I feel like we
cool.
didn't the debate. You don't get a chance to connect, and I know a lot of people know you are part of ProPud VR. That's clear as day. But what is your background? I'm assuming you're into golf, and I say golf because I learned that you don't say golfing as a golfer. That I learned the hard way. But I've got to imagine you got a pretty good history in that, and what got you into VR from there?
Yeah. So I started playing golf when I was 11. Started writing code when I was 13. Um, so yeah, that definitely made me very popular in high school, being on the golf team and being a huge nerd. Um, but I, from there, it's I was always into computers, always into computer science. So I ended up going to Virginia Tech, got my Virginia Tech Scotch glass there, and studying computer science. Got my degree in computer science, and then I got into mobile game development, actually, which was really strange because it was before the iPhone came out, so that kind of dates me a bit. Um, but it was really interesting because this was like when people were still making games for flip phones, which kind of sounds funny. Um, and it just so happened that the like half a year into my first job out of college, which was making games for flip phones, the iPhone released the App Store. So suddenly there's this entirely new market for mobile games, And unlike desktop or console games, on the first iPhone, your processing power was incredibly limited. So everyone's kind of starting from scratch. You have a touch screen, you have an accelerometer, and it's like the wild west of like what's going to work on this new platform, and like is there a real business here? And thankfully, the company I was working for immediately got into creating games for the iPhone, and I got to start working on iPhone games in late 2008, which is as early as anyone else in the world. So as like I guess what, 22-year-old or something like that, um, I kind of immediately had as much experience with iPhone development as anybody else in the world, and I ended up continuing to do that for I think about 10 years or so. And then when HTC released the Vive, I had always been really interested in AR because of mobile, and in VR because when I was at Virginia Tech, they had a pretty cool VR setup called a cave. Have you heard of a cave?
I have not. I have not at all. I actually, I went to college over at George Mason, so we weren't too far away. But if I
That's
had known
right.
they had something like that, I might have actually visited some friends, but I was too lazy getting drunk over there.
Well, there were a lot of opportunities to get drunk at Virginia Tech as well. That was the majority of college, but it was they did have this cave, and it was one of the maybe three or four universities in the world that had this setup, and it was really cool because this is in 2007, which is like the year I graduated college. But it's basically imagine a 10 by 10 cube, okay? And you're standing inside the cube. So in every direction you look around, you're basically in a 10 by 10 room, but the ceiling is gone and the wall behind you is gone. So on those four other walls, they project content onto the walls, and they project it in stereo, and you're wearing these stereo glasses. So out of each eye, you're seeing something different, and you're seeing a projection. So the cool thing about it is you actually can see your hands because you're looking through these glasses, but everything that you see is in full 3D. So you can walk around this 10 by 10 room, you can interact with things. You have this 6 DOF controller that you can use to interact with stuff. And it's like a very futuristic kind of VR setup. And the resolution's pretty good because it's all rear projected, and it was running off these like massive high powered computers, so you could actually push the graphics pretty well for the time. And I got to kind of experience that, and I was like, oh man, VR is awesome, but like obviously people aren't going to have caves in their house
Hmm.
anytime soon, so it's not going to be a consumer thing for a while. And then when HTC came out with the Vive, I tried it at the Microsoft store, and I was like, oh shit, this is really good. This is way more compelling than I thought it would be. Maybe consumer VR has a future.
Can I
And
stop? Can I stop you there real quick?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
I
please do.
think that's for some reason, and I know I had some things that I mean, there's a lot to get into, but what is going on with every single person I speak to, similar to you, similar to me, similar to many of the people I talk with? It's always HTC coming out of people's mouth first. It is. It seems like everyone's first introduction, HTC was there, and I think that is a big reason they have so much goodwill. But and I know this is a tangent compared to what you were talking, but it's just weird to hear every single person bring up HTC first.
I mean, I don't like, obviously, I love Oculus, and I think what they're doing now is tremendous for VR. But when the Rift came out, I mean, when the DK1 came out, I bought that and I tried it and was like, yeah, this isn't this isn't that interesting to me, frankly, because like it's 3 DOF and the resolution sucks, and like I don't know, it's just not. It's interesting, but it's not worth pursuing. When the Vive came out, it was the first 6 DOF headset that I tried that had a 6 DOF, two 6 DOF controllers, and the first game that I played was Space Pirate Trainer,
Hmm.
and I mean, at that Microsoft store, like I was like breaking a sweat trying to set the high score. I was like, you got to let me go again. You got to let me go again. And I was like, this is insane. Like I mean, it was so intuitive. Uh, and it was just like, I mean, it was just mind blowing. I like went home and bought one immediately and bought a computer to power it immediately. And of course, end up getting it all set up. Use it a handful of times, and it was like, okay, this is actually just way too much of a hassle to do on any regular basis. Um, But yeah, man, the Vive when it first came out with the 6-stop controllers just crushed it. And then when Oculus the Rift came out, I thought the optics were great. I
Hmm.
thought the tracking was better. The head tracking was smoother. But the Xbox controller was like, what are you guys thinking? Like, that's just like, what are you doing? You saw what the Vive is with the 6-stop controllers. Like, what are you doing with the Xbox controller? Like, I don't even want to use this thing. So yeah, man. I mean, HTC had a huge head start. I feel like with the controllers and with the headset, and I mean, the rest is kind of history
Yeah,
at this
we
point.
we we kind of know where they stand now. You and I were speaking about that before. All we know, HTC, cut it out with the meme culture, unless you're going consumer products. Um, but with this tech, I think I've been following you for a little bit, watching you kind of tease. I haven't seen the product come out yet, but tease accessories that will help simulate the golf experience better. But I don't see a lot talked about it. I know I think it's the Oakland A's. Yeah, Oakland Athletics. They just started using VR for their training. Although the headline for the training got a lot of attention. The headline that one of their players got injured because of it during it did not get a lot of attention because he has now a season-ending pinky injury apparently.
Oh
Which
my god!
this sounds like a Drew
Wow.
Bledsoe football thing all over again. But have you studied or is there anything out there that you guys talk about where this virtual reality golfing, whatever it is, or golf? I know I keep saying golfing. I'm gonna get killed by my golf friends, but is it translated at all to real life skills?
We don't have any data to prove it, and it's interesting because when we first started developing for the Quest, which was like almost exactly 2 years ago, right after the Quest One came out, the initial goal was to develop a training product where you could connect the Quest One controller directly to your putter using this little attachment that we have. I probably have one around here somewhere. So you're using your actual putter, and it's all getting tracked in 6DoF. And we built a swing analyzer. We were kind of going pretty far down that rabbit hole, uh, and and then we kind of realized that, like, you know what, like, this is going to be a real uphill battle, because what happened for us is we would talk to golfers about it and say, hey, we're building this VR training thing for putting. You can use your controller, it tracks everything, it tracks all of this data, and it's only going to cost like $400 for the hardware. And every golfer that we talked to was so skeptical. They're like, yeah, but we golf, like, it's not
Mhm.
really going to work, da 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 da. And we would show it to them. We would put a demo, get a headset, send it to them, stand there with them, have them try it, and put them through this thing with the analyzer. And like, we'd have to rip the headset off. I mean, they'd be in there for a long time, hitting putt after putt, being like, this is amazing, holy shit. And so after someone tried it, it was incredible. The feeling of holding your putter and hitting putts and getting feedback instantly was amazing. But the sales pitch prior to them trying it was always like, yeah, this is a toy, not a tool. This is a gimmick. It's
Mhm.
not going to work, blah, blah, blah. So we decided to just like put the whole training thing completely on hold and flip directions entirely to focus on gaming instead of training. And frankly, we just haven't really looked back. That being said, I do
There
in
it
my
is.
office. So here's one. These are all made by other people, which is super cool to me that other people are 3D printing things to use in our game. This is the one that I'm the most excited about. It's a guy named Royce, and he sells it on Etsy. It's really cool because there's no strap or anything, so the controller just goes on right over top, and it kind of gets attached in here, and it's solid in there. I mean, I've swung as hard as I can, and then there are weights below the controller, so you get this really nice feeling of weight that you can use for putts, you can use for full swings. And the tracking's great because the entire controller is facing the headset versus being kind of vertical, which can lose tracking. So Royce on Etsy, who makes this, has done a phenomenal job. I think he actually hasn't released the full weighted version yet. But if you buy the existing version, it's like an adapter that attaches to it, so you'll still be able to upgrade. Anyway, I'm super bullish on getting attachments in. I only play with the attachment now. Whenever me and my coworkers play, or if I play friends, like I'm attachment only because I have noticed a pretty significant improvement in my own putting. I don't have like official stats to back it up. But a lot of putting is just confidence, especially, within 10 feet. It's just confidence, like picking a line and hitting your line. And because of VR, I mean, I've probably hit 10 to 20,000 putts within 10 feet over the last couple of years. So when I get up to a putt on the green, I'm just not nervous, right? Because I just have so many
Absolutely.
reps. So I'm bullish on it, but I do think, training is always a relatively small market compared to just like entertainment and consumer.
Well, let's since we're bringing up gaming, let's get into a little bit of this debate stuff that I've been holding on to. Let's I got to vent a little bit, all right? If everyone will bear with me with a little bit of a vent. I have been increasingly more frustrated lately. You and I spoke about this. I did my best to try to counter this, but you saw it pop up on Twitter. You had to defend yourself numerous times. I had to defend yourself. It is impossible these days for things not to be black and white. Where, yes, Six is generally anti Facebook and you are generally pro Facebook, you have to be put into one of these camps, and it's increasingly frustrating because both of you do not fall into those labels, in my opinion, as much. You, instead of being pro Facebook, I would say you have an amicable relationship with Facebook. You are running a business. You need to work with somebody to make that business work. Doesn't mean you're going to defend them in every decision they make, but you get put into the camp of pro Facebook. Where Six, he's very vocal about his hate for Facebook, but in private, and he talked about the stream too. He's not anti-Facebook. Facebook absolutely burned him. I believe they burned him. He's absolutely had problems with Facebook. But if Facebook rectified their ways, he's not counting them out. He's not anti-Facebook. They're not dead to him. They're dead to him as they currently are, but they could change. And this is very annoying that you get pigeonholed into that. He gets pigeonholed into that. When in reality, there's a lot of room here for that gray area. And I thought that was just very, very annoying. And I appreciate you trying to clarify that a lot. I don't know if you want to expand on that, but I just don't understand why we all have to be so black and white on the issue.
Yeah, I think you put it perfectly. I don't consider I don't label myself as pro Facebook, but I do have a very good relationship with Facebook, and without a doubt, I would not be in the VR business right now, if not for Oculus, and if not for the relationship that we have with them and being on their platform and everything like that. And our interactions with Oculus have all been very positive, and they've been very supportive of us, and it's just a positive relationship. That being said, from if Six's situation happened to me, I'm sure I would feel differently about it, and I certainly don't hold that against him in terms of how he
Oh yeah,
feels.
absolutely. I
But
mean, it's you
yeah,
can't be mad at someone when they have that experience. I mean, he kept saying his truth, and I think that phrase, it's some people applaud when you say your truth. Some people hear your truth and they equate to your opinion. But that is his situation. That is what happened. He did have a product that was, in my mind, very good, but it was something that Oculus was absolutely going to get into. I can't imagine any scenario that Oculus wasn't going to get into fitness. And what happened to him happens to many others, whether it's Google who does it, Apple who does it. I know he hates that comparison, but that is a true situation, but it doesn't make him anti Facebook. It just makes him correct in my mind on what the current situation is, but that situation can change. And yes, it's a little bit of an event, but I think it's important to bring up because what is bad now may be good later. Things change, and I'm just sick of the bullshit, sick of it being black and white. Nothing ever is. You know what I mean?
yeah, exactly. I mean, I kind of feel like the United States right now, um, unfortunately, is just more polarized on almost every issue, and I do think social media and the internet plays into that, and it's just a lot easier to put somebody into a bucket than it is to kind of try to understand the middle ground. So it happens, and it doesn't really bother me that much. because regardless of what somebody thinks of me, I'm still going to have my gray opinions about different issues. And if Facebook does something good, I'm generally going to like that. And if if I think Facebook does something bad, I'm not going to stand for it, or I'm not going to support it. So I think it's really important to recognize that they are not black and white, and that companies are made up of individuals. They're not they're not a company is not a person, right? A company has a lot of different things going on, and just because something bad happened at a company doesn't mean that everybody working there is bad or anything like that. So I think it is like I think we could all, myself definitely included, could just kind of help, like, spend some time trying to put ourselves in other people's positions and just recognize that, like, we're all going through something, and that you know the other side's probably not as bad as they may seem at certain times.
Yeah, agreed. And it's very similar to the black and white. I mean, I did appreciate his point. It was a lot of scrolling. You know what I'm talking about. I thought that demonstration was very good when he brought up the Oculus app and what it is tracking. It is quite a bit of information, but that is also a gray area because what privacy means to one person is different than to another. We all value our privacy a little differently. In the perfect world, though, Ryan, what is? It's a weird question here, but what's privacy to you? What is the definition of what you feel comfortable with and what do you not? Because I think I'll give you some time to think on that while I kind of elaborate. I know it's a tough question, but you look at like what I use, whether it's using Google, using Facebook, vehicles that are tracking everything I do, my phone in my pocket. I am not researching any of these companies. A lot of times, I'll go when I need something. I bought a few things yesterday. I go to the store and I bought them because they were very useful. I do have to connect my accounts to them. The Stream Deck I just bought. No, I don't think there's anything wrong with Elgato, but I have to connect my Facebook account to it. I have to connect my Twitter account. I have to connect all my accounts. I'm not doing any research. What's that mean to privacy for me? Am I okay with it? I'm not, but I also make concessions, and I think everybody makes these concessions. But what is privacy to Ryan? What is the deal breaker here?
Yeah, well, I'll start off by saying I think everybody should be entitled to their own degree of whatever privacy they're comfortable with, and the only way that that's possible is sort of having knowledge of what information is being tracked, which I think we need a lot more transparency there so people can make decisions. I think what Apple is doing, is a good thing in letting people opt in or opt yeah, basically opt in and opt out by default to a lot of the tracking that happens. In my scenario, from a pretty early point, I think I kind of mentally um, got comfortable with the idea that anything I share on the internet that is not in a DM, that is not in a email to someone I trust, is public information and could get out there. And with that in mind, I'm basically talking to the world in kind of a restaurant, and there could be someone sitting behind me that hears what I say and do whatever they want with it. So, I think, for me, I kind of operate under the assumption that things that I do on the internet are being tracked because they are. And that, if I don't want them to be tracked, I should, take very conscious precautions, or possibly just not say them or not do them, right? If I'm really worried about, well, if I say this and this other person finds out about it and it's going to hurt their feelings, it's like, well, maybe I don't need to say that in the first place. But generally speaking, think I feel like I kind of recognize the fact that companies like Twitter and Facebook that are free make their money from advertising. And the reason that they can do that is they're very good at taking data about individuals and being able to then sort of bucket those individuals into specific interest groups so that people running ads can target those individuals and show ads to the right people so the ads perform, so they keep paying for ads.
Well, you
And I
made the
feel
point
like
actually during that stream too that Facebook was more or less the relationship you have with them. They are the advertisers of VR because their platform is all visibility. So you being on their platform, they're basically your advertiser because without them, there's no visibility. So that kind of it goes hand in hand.
exactly. I think if you say advertising right now, a lot of people kind of cringe and like, oh yeah, that's like just publicly recognized as a bad thing. But I think there's a other side to that, and I'm pretty conscious of it because for people who have a small business or have gone through a startup and have tried to acquire customers, being able to very specifically target a group of people to run ads for your business or product too is really the only way to survive. I've been at multiple small businesses that have used Facebook and Google and other advertising methods effectively to find an audience and help grow and actually make it as a business. So, I don't personally look at advertising as like the root of all evil. I think that being able to more precisely target people does allow for smaller businesses, like even our business, to grow more effectively, and I think that that can be a very good thing. But I think unfortunately, it can also be used for sort of malicious intent and for targeting people to spread misinformation or targeting people to influence an election, which is has serious consequences. So it's I don't know, it's another one of these sort of gray areas. But at a high level, to your original question, I think I think people should have the right to be able to kind of opt out of a lot of the tracking that is happening by default. But that being said, um, I think people should recognize that like when you visit a website, if you're not like using incognito mode and if you are logged into Facebook, that website probably has a Facebook pixel on it, and that means that Facebook knows that you visited that website. Like that's just technically possible, and that's not going to change. And you are going to be tracked, and Facebook's going to use that data to more effectively advertise to you. And that's kind of that's probably a truth that you should get fairly comfortable with, because even with precautions that Apple's taking to sort of block a lot of the tracking, these companies are very smart about how they're getting their data. And I don't think we're going to be in a scenario where less data is being tracked anytime soon.
Well, me, I know as a developer, you have a wealth of information that's not available to a lot of content creators, a lot of the laymen, a lot of the people who are voicing their opinion on VR. I know you are under NDA for many things, so of course you cannot share everything I'm about to ask, but for what you can, when we're speaking of data, a couple of things. And the first one I want to touch on, Facebook had a leak or had the data stolen, I think 2019, which was just released this year. My phone I had to download a spam blocker. I did get affected by it. We focus a lot on these larger companies, right? But when I use Google, when I use Facebook, when I use any of these places, I know my data is being tracked and I hold them accountable to protect that data. But I think a lesser talked about one that I want to see what you can share about is as a developer, you were also collecting data. And it's stuff that you have to collect for your game to work, for you to keep increasing, whatever. You have data to collect. But if I was in a position where I was trying to steal user data, I would not be attacking Facebook. That's dangerous. I'd be going after developers. They are less guarded, less secure. Can you enlighten us a little bit about what data developers are collecting, what checks there are with Facebook to actually know what they're collecting and things like that? Because I don't think we talk a lot. We talk a lot about the big companies collecting, but developers are as well. And I don't think that gets talked about enough.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it on the debate, and I still think that a lot of people aren't, um, don't appreciate what happened with the Cambridge Analytica thing and why that's likely to happen again. Not necessarily with Facebook, but just in general. With Cambridge Analytica, what happened was a third party developer asked users for permission because they had a Facebook app. So there's this Facebook app on Facebook. It says, hey, take the survey, we'll pay you $2 or something. A bunch of people click the button. got their $2, in the process gave this company complete access to, their Facebook profile, which is totally normal. And this company then downloaded as much data as they could, saved it, and then sold it to Cambridge Analytica, right? So Facebook did not sell any data. This company violated Facebook's terms by storing and selling the data. But there's no way for Facebook to really know that that's happening, because once they have the data, it's on their servers and Facebook can't see it anymore. So, all to say that does happen. I think that's a great point that you bring up. The nice thing, what I've seen with VR, which is really interesting, is when someone downloads our game, we are able to ping Facebook to get information, a little bit of information. And the information that we get is, what is this person's Oculus ID? And there's a numerical ID that's associated with that Oculus ID. In case they change their Oculus ID, the underlying number doesn't change, so that we can use it to create a profile. And that's pretty much it. We also can ping Oculus to see what friends of this person have our game. So if we're friends, then I would see Eric for president, or whatever your VR, your Oculus ID is. I would see that we are friends, and you have this game. I can't see your friends that don't have the game. So from a data perspective, they've actually locked it down really well. And we don't get email, we don't get any demographic information, we don't get age, we don't get Facebook profile information. We do get the avatar, the person's Oculus avatar, but that's pretty much it. So in that respect, if there was a breach, all you'd really get is somebody's Oculus ID, and potentially which of their friends have that game. But there's not a lot of other information that you could get, at least on the VR side of things.
So the data, one point you brought up too that I thought was interesting, it's right here, Apple Watch, right? You brought up that they are collecting, probably out of anyone, the most biometric data, which I can't disagree with. I mean, this thing is on me all day long. It's collecting every single thing, my heart rate, my resting heart rate, my step. It knows me. Now, you made a comment about, with that data, the ends justifying the means, which can be, it's the ends justifying the means fallacy to a degree. Is there a point, the people who were very anti-Facebook for whatever reasons, will we get to a point possibly where the value of Oculus VR, the ends justify the means there, even with the data, with the mandatory Facebook account, all that? Do you believe we get to a point where that might be possible?
I mean, I hope so. I think it's really easy to focus on all of the ways technology can be used in a negative way to make life worse. It's also possible to do the opposite and only focus on the positives. But I think at a high level, if you look at all the technology that's kind of been come to bear in the last 100 years, it has made life so much better than 100 years ago. Like, without a doubt, I think it's very difficult to find many counterexamples. If you're looking at things like life expectancy, average sort of literacy, starvation, like all of the kind of like quality of life metrics, life has gotten better, and it's primarily because of technology. So, with that in mind, if Oculus releases a headset that is tracking your eye movement or something, right? Like, that's been rumored. I don't have any information that says that will or won't happen, but if that did happen, and frankly, like, it's inevitable, it's going
To happen, yes.
yeah, like, and it's not even an Oculus thing. Like, a headset is going to come out and it's going to track your eyes, because there's a lot of value in that. When that happens, somebody is going to take that data and come up with an algorithm that is able to feed you ads in a better way that convert better. That's 100% going to happen, no matter what papers come out or whatever else happens. Like, just get comfortable with the fact that, like, that is inevitable. It is going to happen. Another thing that may happen is, we're able to use machine learning to analyze eye movement in a way that detects certain diseases, right?
Hmm.
That's almost positively going to happen as well. That's effectively what the Apple Watch is doing by analyzing, heart rate. They're able to detect certain issues that could legitimately save your life. And I think we're likely to see the same thing happening in the VR realm as we collect more biometric data. That data will 100% be used to serve you better ads so that these companies make more money. And it will be used to probably promote a healthier lifestyle or help identify issues that could have, a serious impact on your well-being.
So I think
So
that's really quick. I don't mean to cut you off, but that's interesting. But my question would be for the health. Let's go the health benefits route. Let's just be very specific. That way we can narrow this question down. I agree that that's absolutely something VR could do. We could be, conditioning ourselves to figure out things, almost diagnosing ourselves before the problem happens. Who is the one doing the diagnosing, in your opinion, on that? Is it Facebook? Is it going to be, are we going to allow another company to run in the background, almost like YUR did,
right.
to provide that information to someone more qualified to ask? I think that's probably the biggest thing where, yes, there's a lot of net positives out there that can come of VR, but who is getting that data and who's allowed to make that net positive?
Yeah, this is where I might have a unpopular opinion, and frankly, this is where I think Six and I kind of see things a little bit differently because from my perspective, from a data privacy perspective, like Facebook or Oculus, whoever blocking YUR makes total sense. Like they cannot be giving a third party access to that information. So from my perspective, the only way, the safest way for this to work is the platform owner is the one that's doing that diagnosis, and maybe they're working with a very trusted third party that's going through insane compliance. And I know that Six said that they were going through appropriate compliance, so I can appreciate that. But like this would have to be like at a significant level, because otherwise you end up with the Cambridge Analytica scenario where a small company starts up a business, starts collecting all of this data, they sell it to another company that uses it maliciously, right? Like we can't have that. That's not acceptable. Data is so easily transferred that we just can't trust small companies to have private data like that. So I think it would be something that Facebook would probably work with some of the biggest hospitals or researchers in the world to solve, in the same way that Apple is the one who came up with the solution for kind of their health and diagnosis tracking. I believe they did work with different researchers to pull it off, but
I'm,
ultimately,
I'm with
Apple
you
has
on
the data.
that, but I do think just it's one of those things. I think the biggest barrier for this situation is I agree that Facebook's probably going to have the one to take that information. There's no other way. The first party has to take that information, disseminate it to who needs to have it. How do you build a trust, though? That's the key thing, is that right now no one's going to trust Facebook with any information. And they continuously, in my opinion, keep doing things to lose that trust. You see the new current, once the iPhone update just came out, they're now threatening, or not threatening, they're actually saying they're going to limit the usability of the WhatsApp if you do not allow them to track your data. What do they need to do, in your mind? Is there anything they can do to win over that public sentiment? Because I agree with you. They're going to be collecting a lot of biometric data, and that can be used poorly, but it can be used extremely well. And if anyone disagrees with that, they just want to be hating on Facebook, in my opinion. I got no problem saying that. If I could be using playing VR and they could alert me if I have an issue, super useful. I got no problem with that. We get one life to live, and I want the help. But the company getting that info and disseminating it, I have to believe has my best interest in mind. And I got to be honest, I did block all Facebook data with the new iPhone app. And when I got that message for WhatsApp, it left an extreme sour taste in my mouth. But what's got to be
Yeah.
done to earn some of that trust back?
Yeah, again, I don't want to make decisions for individuals. I think individuals have the right to decide what's best for them. In my case, I am comfortable with getting more targeted ads in exchange for using the data to track potential life threatening health issues, or even subtle health issues that just make me a little bit healthier. I think if I think if it can be posed in such a way where we just give people that decision to make, hey, are you comfortable with us using this data both for better ads, and for kind of the health benefits? Then it's, then it does leave it up to individuals. And I know that I think a lot of people are left with a sour taste in their mouth around kind of Facebook limiting functionality based on a lack of tracking. But frankly, I think that's kind of a fair trade because like WhatsApp is free and people are using it as a service and it's creating value for a lot of people, and the only way that Facebook can maintain it is by making that revenue back up, and the way they do that is using the data to run ads. So that's kind of the cost of doing business for a free app. Maybe they end up eventually introducing a subscription where it's like you don't share your data but you can still use this thing. I think that could make sense at some point.
I
But
think
yeah,
that's a pretty good
it's a
segue, though, into you bring up cost. It's obvious that Facebook is the cost leader right now in virtual reality. It's undeniable. Everyone's begging for something. It's the only reason HTC probably even remotely got half the attention they did recently. And it's just not going to happen. It really isn't. No one's going to do what Facebook is doing. But there's a fallacy of choice. We always feel like we want to have choices and we feel like we have the choices, but in reality, a lot of times we don't have the choice that we think we do. We just maybe have one or two with trade-offs. But when it comes to this cost advantage that they do have, is it bad optics? Because in my mind, when I look at options, it being the cost leader it is, whether there is a choice there, whether the fallacy of having a choice is true or false, is the perception of not having options actively detracting from VR, though, in your mind?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's worth keeping in mind that Facebook has like 2.2 or so billion monthly active users. It's got the most monthly active users of any software in the world. Um, so I think they're doing okay. I don't think the majority of people, hate Facebook enough not to use them, and the numbers kind of prove it. I also think it's worth remembering that VR is not mainstream. It's not selling, even close to really the iPhone did when it came out, or 2 years after it came out. So, in order for kind of VR to survive and get to the point where it is mainstream, um, I think we kind of need to add fuel to the fire that's working. And I don't think having two 299 headsets that look and work exactly the same is going to make VR like go mainstream, right? I don't think VR is not mainstream simply because enough people hate Facebook. I do think there's a pretty vocal minority of people that would love an alternative, and just follow VR on Twitter and you'll see them. But I don't think that that's true for mainstream. So I'm a huge proponent because I think VR is still at the point where it's 100% entertainment, right? There are very few people that are buying a VR headset for any sort of utility. And the iPhone wasn't like that. As soon as you had friends that had an iPhone or a smartphone, it became very clear very quickly that like they kind of had the edge, and you're going to get left in the dust if you don't get one of these things. And that's just not the case with VR right now. I mean, it's still 100% targeted at consumers that want to play games. So we're still not at the point where a VR headset is a must have, or really creating like this massive advantage over not having one. And I think Facebook's kind of ability and willingness to subsidize it in the meantime it's definitely allowing studios like mine to exist when without them there's really no way to make that happen. So I do hope that it is allowing more developers and more folks to kind of pursue the interest of VR and get some experience there, so that as it becomes more mainstream, more people have experience and more applications are available.
Can we talk
Um,
a little bit about your studio in particular? Now, obviously, you're obligated to say nothing under NDA. I understand that completely, but I still would like to ask, and I believe the chat would also be interested as well. But a kind of a double pronged question. One is there is a lot, we have been talking about the health benefits, all this data use, things like that. And like I said, I know you're not pro Facebook. You have an amicable relationship with them, but I do think it's safe to say that you have more trust in them currently than maybe the vocal minority, as you say, of the Facebook detractors. Is there anything specific that's happened behind closed doors that leads you down that path that you trust them more? And out of curiosity, I'm not sure if you could share, but what are you making money off Oculus Quest? Like, is it selling well? Because we can't get sales figures on anything, and if I have you here, I gotta ask. I'm not gonna not.
I can't. Yeah, unfortunately, I can't share any specific data. But our team is. We have 4 people on the team. Technically, only 2 other employees. And we're going to make 7 figures of profit this year. So that's good.
Very
Um,
good, very good.
yeah, I think I think a large part of it is because we have kept our team so small, and we have a very strategic partner with Topgolf, and they run ads at Topgolf, and we have some other really interesting partnership opportunities and announcements in the coming months. But yeah, no, we're doing well. We're definitely. I don't think that's the case for the majority of the games on the Quest. I do think it's kind of one of those scenarios where once you break into kind of the higher tiers, it all becomes exponential, right? Like, obviously we're not even close to something like Beat Saber or Pistol Whip or some of these other games. But we're at that point where we've kind of hit the mark where we're getting consistent installs on a daily basis. So thankfully, things are going well there. We do plan on reinvesting all of that money back into the game and growing our team and stuff like that. So it's not like our team members are just all like rich overnight, right? Like, we're
Mm-hmm.
investing in the future there.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that that last comment, I don't mean to come off that way because I think you are right. I kind of brought it up on Twitter that the not-for-profit companies, there's not many at Twitter, and Thrill made the point that there's really not many making a profit anyway. That is completely valid. But we are talking a lot about the Oculus Quest, and I do want to let's get real here for a second. We talked about it on the debate, but I think the question was politely dodged, and it wasn't dodged on purpose. It was just no one has a true answer for it. What other options are coming other than Oculus Quest? I asked Six the question. What are developers going to do other than going to Oculus Quest? And I meant that earnestly. It's a real question, but let's be real. I want to hear from you. What the hell are the other options? Is there anything, or is the option right now, if you want to make money, is the Quest the only thing, and is nothing coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be completely straight up. We, through the end of this year, we're not going to be on any other headset. We've been approached by every other headset that's coming out, and a lot of, every single one offered to pay to port our game over, and give us sort of some upfront cash and stuff like that to make it fairly appealing. But when we started to get into like, okay, well, like, what numbers what are the sales numbers that you guys are expecting? They are all a very small fraction of what we've seen on the Quest so far. So from that perspective, yeah, I mean, it's the only game in town by a large margin. We planned on porting over to Rift as well, but we talked to some other devs that have done it, and like, it's just not worth it. I know it sounds like when you're not, if you haven't done development, I know it sounds like, well, why don't you just do it? It's free money. They're going to port for you. Like, why wouldn't you just take the money? But the reality is, like, we care deeply about our community and our game and our support. And I'm not going to release a product that I haven't personally played all the way through and found every issue with, and like, kind of gets that seal of approval. Not to say that our game doesn't have any bugs, but to say that, like,
Trust me, I've seen Ben Link's tweets to you, man. He's got plenty to say right now, doesn't he?
Yeah, yeah. Well, hey, I'm glad he's playing it, so I'm not going to complain. I like the feedback. And more importantly, I want to have the time to address that feedback because I fully appreciate the fact that VR is still very small right now. So it gives us the opportunity to really focus on sort of, quality over quantity and just stay very focused on the one platform that makes the most sense instead of trying to spread ourselves too thin and then end up like, trying to triage issues across 5 different platforms. So from a small dev perspective, having one platform to focus on is actually, I consider, a real benefit. And here's what I hope. Our plan for next year is to ideally, get the game working for PSVR 2 whenever that comes out. And, hopefully, if Apple headset comes out, our goal would be to get it onto Apple's headset. And if there's another headset that emerges that seems like it's got some potential, we'll definitely consider it. But in the meantime, for devs getting into VR, I do think what we've seen and numbers that we've heard, the Quest is an order of magnitude, if not multiple orders of magnitude, beyond the next closest competitor.
Oh yeah, I mean, you look at the Steam numbers. I mean, 25% ish. I'm generalizing here. 25% ish percent Steam VR connected headsets or the Oculus Quest. I look at games that I personally very much enjoy. Population One is one of them. And you look on the Steam numbers. The last time I looked, specifically, whatever time of the night when I wanted to go play, there were 48 people, 48 online Steam VR. If 25% of those are Oculus Quest, connect to Steam VR. That's not including the ones who are possibly playing a virtual desktop. It's not. I understand where you're coming from a dev. There's no reason to work on the PC VR front, but you brought up at the beginning of this conversation. I know your history with mobile gaming, the Oculus Quest. It is mobile VR. It is definitely a backward step. I have no problem saying that. It is a backward step from PC VR, and I think it can be necessary at times. But from a developer standpoint, I have no idea about this. What's the ceiling on the current Quest 2 tech compared to what we have? So, for example, you look at Red Matter when it came to Quest 1, they did a few updates that dramatically increased the performance of it. Are we tapping in to the full potential of the Oculus Quest 2 right now? Is there a lot of room still to make these games people want? Or, unfortunately, is the mobile platform right now fairly tapped on that ceiling? Because I know Zuckerberg has talked about, and Abrash and all them, that maybe there's a pro coming, but we have a while. I think we have a couple years right now of this current model. What's the ceiling that we have to work with?
Yeah. So the Quest 2 is a massive step forward versus the Quest 1. But to put this all in perspective, if you, when you're developing, there are basically kind of two major thresholds, two major metrics that you want to look at to optimize your game to kind of figure out how far you can push it on the graphics front. And it's polygon count, triangle count, how many triangles you can actually put on the screen at once, and draw calls, which gets a little more complicated, but it's kind of the essential. Like, you can group things that are similar material, so it's like almost how many different materials can you have on the screen at once. And the Oculus Quest 1 was basically the equivalent to a GameCube in terms of performance, which is a 20-year-old console,
Hey man,
right?
I liked Luigi's Mansion, so let's not talk shit about
Oh
that.
yeah, no, it's a great console, but it's 20 years old. So that I think that kind of puts it in perspective. And oh, sorry, 1 second. Hey, buddy, I'm on a YouTube. I'm on a call on YouTube. Do you mind if we hang out in a little bit? Let me
I'll
go
get him
find the
out of this one,
mama.
guys. Thank you, chat, for being part of this right now. And I will be
All
asking
good,
that
all good.
PSVR 2 question, so we'll get there. Don't
We're
worry.
good. Thank you for the breather. Yeah,
We'll give you a
my
walkout,
son.
man.
No, he's good. His mama came over. He loves
I feel like that's a
loves
perfect
to see what dad's
that's
up
like the
to.
perfect clip for COVID before. I mean, I know it's kind of ending now, ending, but all those news clips of kids walking in during the news.
Exactly. I was like, it's inevitable. Yeah, especially when I'm on headphones because he doesn't even hear. He's like, "Why are you talking to yourself, Dad?" But so basically, performance wise, the Quest 2 is effectively 2 to 3 times that. So it's still, it's still extremely limited. And when you compare to like desktop level performance, I mean, it's like potentially desktops can probably push like tens of millions of polygons or triangles, and Quest 2's maybe a few 100,000, right? So it's a massive difference, and that's why a lot of the games, including ours, are fairly limited in terms of what we can display graphically. I will say that one of the challenges with kind of the Quest 2 coming out when it did, and the performance bump, is that up to this point, it hasn't been possible to release a game that only targets the Quest 2. I believe it was Resident Evil, or maybe it was a different one, that just announced that they were going to be Quest 2 only. And, we've been chatting with Oculus to see what the options are there. But, now that the Quest 2 has been selling significantly better than the Quest 1, and it's consuming the majority of usage, I think we are going to start to see more games that are tapping into the potential of the Quest 2. And I don't think very many games have truly pushed the limits, because technically, in order to do it, it is actually it's quite a bit of work to kind of get it working well on the Quest 1 and push the limits of the Quest 2.
So
So
what
I
would you
think once
say
we're
is the life cycle? What life cycle we're working on? I know a lot of people were frustrated with the life cycle between the Quest 1 to the Quest 2. It was pretty quick, admittedly.
yeah.
Some people I know just got the Oculus Quest 1 maybe a few months before the Oculus Quest 2 announcement, and I don't blame them because the Oculus Quest 1 wasn't super old at that point. Do you have any knowledge with Facebook or anything that what the current life cycle they're going for with the Quest 2? Is there something coming down the pipeline?
I don't, and if I did, I couldn't tell you, but I don't. um, but I think it's really important to recognize that we're still in the very early days of VR, and there's still stuff like uh, face tracking, eye tracking, feature tracking, resolution improvements, field of view improvements. There's still some pretty major things that could have a massive impact on the quality of a headset. So, if you go back to using your Quest 1 after using your Quest 2, it's like, holy shit, how did I think this was acceptable? Like the resolution and just the performance and everything. It's like, I mean, it's like night and day. And I'm pretty sure whenever the next headset comes out, we're going to feel similarly about the Quest 2. And, I think it's the same thing on mobile when you went from the iPhone 3G to the 3GS to the 4 to the 4S. Every single new one just makes the old one, kind of look super dated. And I really hope that we keep up a pretty quick, you know, I hope that we see new hardware pretty quick, because up until we hit the point where it is mainstream, it could frankly be like just a little bit of hardware away. I mean, I think once the resolution increases a little bit, we're seriously talking screen replacement and monitor replacement, and like this now becomes a utility, and this is what you write your emails on, and watch movies on, and read your news on. And like the Quest 2 is already pretty close. It's definitely possible, but it's not quite there. I think within a couple iterations we could be there, and then it really goes from kind of being this toy to being like a real utility. So my hope is that we do see hardware as fast as possible. I know it's not ideal for people buying the hardware and not wanting to upgrade every cycle, but as we saw with mobile, like the yearly release of the iPhone just became something that you come to expect. It was they didn't really miss a beat. They set the tone, and I think it pushed the whole field forward versus consoles, where it's like you can wait 4 or 5 years between console updates, and it just I don't know, it's just not as compelling.
Speaking of hardware, though, PSVR, you brought it up. You are not on the PSVR 1. The PSVR 2 is going to be dramatically, of course, different than the PSVR 1. Hopefully, at least the controllers we already know are, which is a huge step up. That's probably number one in many people's books. The PSVR 2, what are your expectations? What are going to be the hurdles for that? Is this something that, generally speaking to you, is going to be a solid option? Or is it, again, more utility like it is right now? I personally, I'm not shy to admit it. I am not a fan of the PSVR 1. But I'm hopeful for the PSVR 2.
Yeah, I think the PSVR 2 is going to be incredible. I think that power wise, I mean, the PlayStation 5 is a beast. To be able to run that level, that quality on a headset, it is going to be incredible. It's going to blow people's minds in terms of what developers are able to push, I believe. So in that respect, I'm very excited. I hate tethers. I just hate them after using the Quest. Every time I have to kind of use the tether, I it just like annoys the crap out of me and it breaks my immersion. So from that perspective, I'm definitely less excited, especially since we have a golf game where you're swinging your arms. It's just so easy to get caught up. Um, that I'm less excited about. I was really hopeful that they would do something wireless. I'm kind of surprised they didn't, but I'm sure they tried. Um, but yeah, no, I think it's going to sell well. I mean, the PSVR one, sold like 5 million units or something. I mean, it was the hottest selling VR headset for such a long time, and like you said, I'm kind of not going to be shy about it. Like, it was a piece of crap. Like, I mean, people would use it and get sick, and it definitely. I don't think it did any favors for VR.
No, absolutely not.
Um,
I mean, it's I get it. It's an accessory. Like, let's be honest, it is an accessory to the PS4, which is fair, and I think that makes it easily more adoptable than a standalone unit for the PlayStation community. But it doesn't make it a good representation of what VR can be. I I try to be diplomatic, but I can't help myself to think that it is a better version of Google Cardboard in the sense that it gives an experience that doesn't represent what it will be. And unfortunately, you only get one chance to have a first impression. But
yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, it is what it is. Like, I mean, I think a lot of people liked it, and that means when they use, something like a Quest 2 or whatever comes after, they should love it. So, yeah, I hope the PSVR 2 is amazing. I really do, and the specs look really good. I was hoping they push the res a little bit more, but I don't. I think they're going to focus exclusively on gaming as like the primary use case. Um, so with that in mind, I don't think they need to push the res as much as like Oculus, who I hope starts to sort of focus a little bit more on utility and like monitor replacement. And then, the Apple headset's the one that I'm just sort of personally the most excited about, just because, they obviously have the internal budget to push this thing pretty far. And apparently they've been working on it for a while. And the rumors are that the resolution is going to be insane. And it is like potentially legitimately going to be a computer replacement and powered by the M1 processor. And maybe very expensive at first, which isn't new for Apple, but I think it could very well be the most interesting glimpse into the future of what VR will be.
let me bring up, and we might be changing topics here, but you did bring up your sales earlier, which I appreciate you alluding to that. I think it's the mind of a developer is much different than we do not have the access to that. There was a lot of content creators, myself involved. We make a lot of armchair dev comments. We don't have the information that I would like to have, but I appreciate you sharing that information. Now I look at someone brought up the chat, Demio making crap load of money in the first couple of days it was
Yeah,
out. And they made a comment. The games that seem to be making quite a bit of money, you brought up yours, Demio, extremely niche games. They are not mass appeal. If we're going to call golf mass appeal, I do not agree with that. If we're going to call D&D mass appeal, I do not agree with that. What's this secret sauce here? I mean, come on, we don't have that many developers on many streams. What is this that is causing people to buy into these games rather than others? Is there something that is drawing people to certain experiences over others?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Like, we saw a massive uptick, one, because of the holiday and the Quest 2 just taking off. But I think more importantly for us, we saw kind of sustain sales after the holiday. And we tracked it back to friends telling friends about it, right? So I think I 100% agree. Golf is not a mass appeal thing, especially if you consider the fact that the VR demographic right now is very much like kind of hardcore gamer
Hmm.
would be the best way to describe it. And hardcore gamers are typically not huge into sports or golf, especially golf. Um, so anyway, all to say that that all makes sense. I think the big difference is one, if you play our game, it is focused on golf as the core mechanic, but with the Topgolf edition that we added right before the holidays, and kind of with the 4-player stroke play within Pro Putt, uh, if you ask the majority of our players what they like about the game, it's the socializing aspect of it. It's a great way to socialize, and even in our Topgolf game, at this point we've had over 2 million cornhole bags thrown in our game in Topgolf. Over 2 million bags have been thrown,
Yep. Hmm.
because we have cornhole in there, right? And we've got the fire pit, and we've seen like hundreds of thousands, if not millions by now, of marshmallows being roasted, right? And literally, tens of thousands of hours of YouTube being played. So it's much more than just golf. It's a way to go hang out with your friends in VR that feels a little bit more natural, a little bit more fun, at least for us. And I think Demio is kind of the same thing in terms of everybody that I've talked to that's played it, tells their friends about it. And if you've got a VR headset and you start to hear multiple friends talking about it, and it is more of a social experience, you're going to want to go check that out and experience that with your friends. Like, all of us that are into VR right now are sort of by definition early adopters. Therefore, we're more likely to go check something out that our friends are talking about.
Yes.
I
No,
think I think
absolutely agree with that one. I think I've said it numerous times. Patience is a virtue in this niche. I can't stress that enough. I I'm gonna play the boomer card here. I guess I'm getting older, but I am more than okay with waiting a decade for the experiences that we all dream of. Um, I'm okay with that. It's a ride, and that's something that I'm fine with. Do you have any analytics or anything for the average retention? Because something that I'm thinking, we claim that VR gaming is more immersive, and if it truly is, I'm not going to game hop to something that's super immersive. If something is immersive, I want to be inside it. I want to embody it. I want to become that character. Because of that, is the time value going to be even more valuable to someone where PC gaming, I may flip flop between 10 games at a time. That's a huge exaggeration, but I absolutely currently am flip flopping between a few different games. But when it comes to a VR game, I find myself playing one or two very religiously until I feel satisfied with that immersion. Is this something that developers like you are factoring in to find ways to hold people into the game? Because, of course, I think VR is more taxing physically, it is more demanding of hardware. People are going to focus on more than one, or focus in my mind on one game more than many. I don't know if this is something that's true or just an opinion of mine.
Yeah, no, it's something, that's one of our core metrics. I think that from my experience, and I did a lot of stuff outside of gaming, sort of between my first job out of college and where we are now, and did a lot of startup stuff. And analytics is like the key to any startup success that I've seen. And we decided to kind of boil down all of our data to like a couple what are called KPIs, which are like key performance indicators, which basically means like what are the most important metrics that we're looking at, and how can we make that the smallest set so that we just focus all of our efforts on those. And one of them is weekly active users. We want to see that number grow because that's basically retention, along with new users, sort of get piled in there. And for us, the other one is reviews. We don't have a lot of data to prove it, but when you're looking at the apps on the store, the apps that have higher reviews in terms of score out of 5 and quantity of reviews are just generally going to get more attention. So those have kind of been our two main focuses. And the weekly active user one is really interesting because, yeah, to your point, I would love to see what the graph looks like for a game like Half-Life Alyx, where the game itself is amazing. I mean, it's mind-blowing, the level of detail and just the quality of it. And especially if you're into Half-Life, like, they just did such a great job. But after, I don't know that many people that played it multiple times or go back to it now. It's because it's a single player game and like the mod community never really took off. So like once you're done with it, like you kind of experienced it. It would be like watching a movie again. Whereas a multiplayer game is different every time you play it. A sports game is often different every time you play it. So one thing that we're trying to work on is basically finding more hooks to get people to have a reason to keep playing every week. So within the coming months, we're going to be introducing a few new things, one of which will be kind of tournaments, events, sort of world ranking that accumulates over time versus just leaderboards. We have found great success with just the leaderboards and having weekly leaderboards and stuff like that. But we kind of want to give people a really good reason to play the game every week. We're in a good position in terms of basing our game and a lot of our hooks off of a real sport that exists. Every single week there is a golf tournament, a PGA golf tournament, and it's broadcast on TV every single week. So, we don't need to invent the wheel. We can kind of just try to build a lot of things that follow a similar cadence to PGA, and a lot of golfers, kind of try to dedicate one day a week to go playing golf if they're really into it. So like one of the weekend days to go play with their friends. So our goal is to kind of do that and really give you a good reason to play every week, and then try to build in like some, in-game incentives like currency stuff, upgrades, stuff like that, to kind of give you more reasons to play every week. But yeah, I would say every developer I've talked to is pretty aware of their metrics, and we track every action that you take in game just so that we can create funnels and try to understand like what's the difference between a player that does become a weekly active user and one that doesn't.
Yeah, I think it's a strong opinion of mine. And again, this might be an ageist type thing, but I find the time value of VR gaming much more important than the time value I have when PC gaming. Half-Life Alyx, you brought that up. I find a lot of time value in that because the modding community has done a fantastic job keeping that game relevant. The Bioshock mod, I'm not sure if you've played that. I was blown away. Bioshock is one of my favorite games I've ever played. It was probably story-wise the first. I won't spoil it, but what's the word? Not cliffhanger. Just surprise. I don't know the
Twist.
word. Twist.
Yeah.
Twist. The greatest M. Night Shyamalan twist that I've ever had in my gaming experience, because I did not see it coming at all. So I appreciate the modding community like that, but I see a lot of VR games coming out that I play a little bit of. I have no problem calling them out. Cards and Tankers is a current one that I really am enjoying, but I find that between the comfortability of the headset, the battery life, and the time sink that some of these games don't seem to value, it's a big detractor. And I don't know I don't know if this is a me problem. Maybe the chat can chime in. But I find that where we can take liberties in PC gaming or traditional console gaming with people's time because you can multitask during it, you can pause at any time. VR gaming has a lot of challenges that I think the time value of your time spent in the headset has to be valuable. I think that is huge for retention.
Yeah, I agree. I would say there's a flip side to that. And that is if someone's playing a mobile game, or or even a console game or a PC game, they are not, they can be distracted visually. Your phone can ring, you could see something out of the corner of your eye, you could just want to check your emails real quick or something like that. And it's very easy to kind of disconnect for a moment and go do that. Whereas one nice thing about VR is when you're strapped into the headset, you know, you're completely immersed. You don't get your phone notifications, at least not in the headset. You're in a completely different world, and because of that, I think that we do see pretty strong session lengths. I think our average session length is like 40 or 45 minutes, which is a decent amount. For a VR session, I think it's like a good amount for a VR session compared to like a mobile game that in many cases could just be like 10 or 15 minutes.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think, and I agree. I think there is still, fatigue that comes with being in VR. So I do think it's pretty critical for developers to kind of really think about giving people in the game like moments to breathe and to like relax a little bit too, and not just be burdened with action, or have kind of good stopping points, so that there is an opportunity to kind of get in and out. Obviously in our case we have like rounds of golf, so they're pretty natural, but we decided to launch 9-hole courses instead of 18-hole courses because we had tested 18 holes and it was like, wow, this is a lot. Like, this may be asking too much. Like, let's tone it down. And if we need to increase, then that might work. And we've actually thankfully had, very few complaints about it being 9 holes instead of 18 holes. And I think if we did have 18 holes, my guess is the majority of people would only play 9 anyway. So
I mean,
yeah, I think
I
thinking
don't
about
personally
session
golf
length.
too much, but if you gave me 18 holes, I'm stupidly drunk by 9. So I back you up
Yeah,
on that.
yeah,
Well,
yeah, exactly.
let me end it here. I think it's important, and I want to give you the time to sign off on this. I think right now, opinion wise, VR's in a little bit of a spot. The content is coming, but it's not coming at the speed that people expect. And I think a lot of those expectations are based off their past experiences with non VR gaming, which is fair. We are all subject to our past experiences. Don't judge anyone for that. The content that is coming, the content that Pro Putt VR wants to give, what's the light at the end of the tunnel? What would you say to someone who is either in VR right now and wanting more, or someone looking currently to VR for that future possibility? What's your pitch for the future?
Oh, man, yeah, that's a good question. My long-term hope is that, VR gets to the point where a good portion of people can be in VR, and maybe it's mixed reality, as a substitute for staring at a computer screen and typing on a computer. And um, my hope is that when we get to the point where people are actually working in VR and spending a good portion of their day in a VR environment, and hopefully it's a lot more comfortable and better resolution and all of that. My hope is at that point, we will see a lot more opportunity for kind of these like much more smaller apps coming out, like kind of like the flash games of like the late 90s or early 2000s, or that style of thing, where you started to see all these little games on the web that you could play and you didn't have to buy, and there were some really fun ones that were just really engaging. um, my hope is that VR kind of gets to the point where it is more of a utility, so that creates more of these casual opportunities. In the meantime, creating a full-fledged VR game that people are willing to pay for is extremely, it's very expensive, time-consuming, and requires a specific sort of skill set of developer or expertise of design, that is around 3D, which is very complicated. Not just 3D, but like fully immersive. And if you're dealing with Quest, then it has to be extremely performant. And it's very expensive. It's very time consuming, and unfortunately, with the size of the market, there just aren't that many studios that are wanting to take that risk, because the best case scenario reward, is still relatively small compared to the other markets like console or mobile. So I think patience is the key word, like you said earlier. I think this is a marathon. We're at like probably the first quarter mile of it, not even that far along. The fact that the Quest 2 is doing so well is um, incredibly amazing, and it's huge momentum going forward. But I do think patience is required, and if you're into VR, then I highly recommend, just like maybe it's like once a month, once every couple months, whatever you can kind of afford. Just like go find a new game on the store and just buy it and play it, and then send the developer your feedback. Like, we love to get feedback, especially if it's constructive criticism that'll help us make the game better. That's what we're looking for. It really helps support us. I know every dev out there, can use the extra money, and everyone I know is certainly planning to invest that back into VR. So check out games. Eric, you've said it multiple times on Twitter. There are a ton of like sort of hidden gems out there. If you want to play a single player game like before bed type of a thing, that is just such a great stress reducer, like go buy Cubism. It's so well done. It's such a great game. You will not be disappointed. It's $10, I think. So it's like, just go support that. Let's let's go support the people that are kind of risking it to be in there. And then I think that's also going to make it easier for new devs to get in, because everyone will see there's kind of more spending happening. So yeah, I think we've got a bit of a flywheel going, but it's just starting to spin, and it's going to take some time for everything to kind of click. But I think we're moving in the right direction, and I think the future is going to look really bright.
Ryan, I thank you very much for being here. And to everyone in the chat, I'd like to sign off with this. And I think about it quite a bit. And Ryan basically hit the nail on the head with most of my thoughts. There are very few times in a lifetime that you can get in early on something that's going to be transformative. The internet was something, of course, that was like that. When the internet started, I was way too young to understand the impact that it was going to have. If I had capitalized when it started and gotten in, who knows what I could be now. We all have an opportunity with virtual reality. It is fun. Gaming is fun. It has utility that will be extremely important. We are all in something very early, and I encourage everyone in this chat, don't get jaded. I see it right now happening. Everyone wants it to be something. This is a patience game, and I urge anyone in the virtual reality community to be encouraging, to be supportive, to get people into it. We are all, whether you've gone into it 5 years ago, 10 years ago when it was DK1 and DK2, you are early adopters. You are the reason things get held up as long as they have. I appreciate what you guys do. I appreciate what you, Ryan, do for the VR community. And I hope to have more of these talks in the future. I think they're very important. And I hope to get to more real questions and real topics that actually matter to you all. So again, thank you to everyone in the chat. Ryan, thank you very much for being part of this fireside chat. But I do want to sign off here, guys. We will have another one with 6 very soon. And debate number 2 with Thrill Seeker versus Blair. Yeah, that's gonna be something. I don't even know how to describe what that's gonna be like, but that's gonna happen on this coming Thursday, May 20th to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But I thank you all for being here. But that is gonna be the end. Ryan, do you have any last words before we end?
No, Eric, I think what you're doing for the space is awesome. I really appreciate you having me on here, and I appreciate what you're doing for VR. So yeah, anything I can do to help support, just let me know.
Absolutely. Thank you all in the chat for being the difference makers. Remember, if you're not happy with something, do whatever you can in your power to make it work for you. It's all on us. The future of VR is on us, and I appreciate what you guys are doing. But as always, I'll see you next time, Space Cowboys.